Well, do you ever get the idea that your kids are bored in school? It might be because so many classes focus on sterile memorization of facts and figures and formulas rather than engaging children in solving real-life problems. Today, there are new options for teachers that can help them better prepare students for the outside world while still keeping them interested in learning. Our guests this morning are Dr. John Mergendaler, Executive Director of the Buck Institute for Education, and Dr. Dan Domenech of the American Association of School Administrators. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you all this morning. All right, so I want to get an overview here from you, John. First of all, I mean, students might be able to do well on tests, but do they lack the skills that they need for real life or career success?
Well, Danielle, if you want students to be problem solvers, you have to give them problems to solve. If you want them to develop the skills of self-management and teamwork that they're going to need in the workplace, you have to give them the opportunity to develop those too. And project-based learning is a way to engage students in delving deeply into subject matter, but also developing these skills that are going to be so crucial in their later life.
That makes sense. I think that's very important to point out. And for you, Dan, you've been in education, public education, more than 36 years. How can teachers incorporate project-based learning into their curriculums?
Well, it's very much crucial to the curriculum, and particularly today as we talk about 21st century learning skills, as we talk about a Common Core curriculum, which all the states are looking to adopt. It's perfect because it delves into the higher order thinking skills. It's just not kids going into class and memorizing facts and figures, but actually being engaged, actively engaged in projects that allow them to better remember, you know, what they're supposed to learn, that allow them to problem solve, to learn to be collaborative, all of the things that we see as critical to 21st century skills.
Interesting. I think it's different from my day when I had a little egg. I had to float across the pool and a piece of paper and a boat and make sure it made it all the way across. I'm sure this project-based learning is a little more involved than that. Give us some examples of the kinds of projects students work on.
I mean, what you're describing is what we call a dessert project.
Okay.
That is, it's not the main course of learning. It's just something that's a little frivolous thing at the end. But what if you were learning physics by designing airplane wings out of newspaper and paper mache? And you had to design them, you had to test them, you had to map the forces, you had to collect data, and then you had to break them to see how strong they were. This is what a group of students in Bellingham, Washington are doing with their teachers to learn structural design principles and momentum and physics. How about studying the stream behind your school, assessing the water quality, looking for sources of pollution, and then making a report to the community on what you found? There's another example of an earth sciences project which could include writing and mapping and geography. You
know, this program or these project-based learning programs are not just for the big kids, right? It starts all the way from the little ones, kindergarten through high school?
Absolutely, all ages.
I think that's a wonderful thing as well. What do you think, Dan, that teachers value most about these programs?
Well, teachers love this because it's doing exactly what teachers want. They want their children to be engaged, all right? They don't want kids acting out in class because they're bored. The kids are engaged. And finally, the kids remember what they learned. It's not they studied the night before for the test, they take the test, and then they'll never remember what they read about. They'll always remember this. So it's just perfect for teachers.
Let's talk a little bit about measurable results. What have you seen? I mean, do you find that students are better able to cope with challenges outside the classroom by doing these project-based programs inside the classroom?
Well, the research points to three things. First of all, it says that students who are not engaged by typical ways of teaching become engaged with project-based learning. The second thing it says is that project-based learning does not harm test scores. Finally, if you ask a graduate of a high school that uses project-based learning, what was it about that high school that prepared them for the challenges that they face in school or in career? They're going to point to the work they did with others, the critical thinking they had to do about projects, the ability to manage their own time, all of these things that they're going to need for success later in life.
And so let me ask you this, what do you think the future is of project-based learning? I mean, do you see it being offered in more schools over time?
We see the demand for high-quality project-based learning growing exponentially. And with the Common Core coming out next year, the demand is going to be even greater.
Well, I have to tell you, just a wonderful program, and thank you so much for coming by and sharing it with our viewers this morning.
I'm delighted.
Makes my little egg look like dessert. All right, John, thank you very much. And And if you need more information about project-based learning and the Buck Institute for Education, simply visit the website. It's BIE.org.